And, they've had a lot of issues with xCloud. And one of the things that we did call out when Amazon announced Luna was, they were going to bypass iOS completely in terms of bypassing Apple's processes by doing things through the browser and then using the browser as a way to deliver cloud gaming.
Sneaky.
And now it seems in a basically it sounds like an all hands staff meeting that Phil Spencer's like, you know what, stuff it. We're just going to go direct browser based solution to get xCloud on iOS. And look, even if this is not very good the way it works, I think number one, it puts so much pressure on Apple to relinquish and allow them on the platform. And number two, it just eliminates all the issues that they're having with marketing. Because right now, when they talk about xCloud, they have to be so specific about Android because they don't want to get a situation where someone's like, oh, I got it on my phone and it didn't work. And I bought this accessory and, hang on, this doesn't work on, on the iPhone. So yeah, like I'm kind of glad that they're doing this. And, we've said many times on the show, I think Apple's being ridiculous.
I think so, yeah. It just sucks for consumers in the end. This. I mean, I have an iPhone. I think you have an iPhone as well, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not particularly. I'm not a fanboy or anything. I don't. I got my hands on an Android. I've used Android before. My last one was a Samsung Galaxy, so it's much of the same. Much is really for me, but it just annoys me that there's certain things like that I don't have access to. Just mostly because Apple just don't want to do it because they have profitability and other business factors in mind as opposed to caring about their consumers at that level. So
and they got the lawsuit with Epic Games, which I think they'll win.
Epic
lawsuit.
Or Apple?
And Apple. I think given the way that their lawsuit's structured, and it's already in early arguments with the judge. The judge's comments back to Epic were not very positive in their favor for the trial. And the trial's happening early half of next year. So yeah, it's already really bad for Epic in terms of the news from the judge, because effectively the judge is like, well, hang on a second. Apple allowed you to put Fortnite right back on the phone. Like they actually gave you an offer to say, you know what, you stuffed up, but we'll let you back on. Just go back to having the payment through their gateway and we can continue this discussion. And Epic refused to do that. So the judge is basically like, how have you got damages? This is self-inflicted. And it's just like, I was reading through it a little bit and I was like, oh God, this is bad for Epic. But, and this is kind of what I said at the start when it happened, for me, it was always about a groundswell of sentiment against Apple and getting the government to mobilize against them. And that's starting to happen. So there's an actual anti-competitive class sort of like investigation in the Congress in the States. And they're actually like in there, it's like very explicit saying that Apple is a monopoly for their own system. E.g., if I have an app, I can't get it on unless Apple's okay with it. Like there's no way for me to put an app on a phone, even though they're a multi-use computer
We could
device.
Talk hours about this though. The thing is, I can see Apple's view as well in terms of security. I mean, obviously, I can see it from the business perspective of not wanting to allow other types of, I guess, payment systems on their own platforms. But what I find fascinating is when you have a company like that sells a product that they own and create on a platform that they own and create, that you need to agree to their terms and conditions to get onto it, that it gets to the stage where the government intervenes to say, oh no, you can't just basically have your own terms and conditions about this. You need to give people choice. I find it fascinating. I mean, in the end, when you go to buy an Apple device, you play by their rules. But I guess it's down now to the fact that as an average consumer, the government's saying, oh no, those rules don't really apply. We need to intervene and allow people to basically do what they want on someone else's platform. So I don't know. It's a fascinating topic. I see both sides of the conversation of the coin, and I think Apple have had big benefits up until this point where they had a pretty tightly closed off platform that they would control, and I actually think that's benefited people in general due to having less issues with shitty apps. I mean, you still get a lot of shitty apps, but it's tighter control around the apps that they have. So you're less likely to get viruses. You're less likely to get trash on their platforms. There's a lot more weeding out some of that stuff that I think, a platform like Android wouldn't have. So if you open the floodgates to that kind of stuff, I can also see how that could be a negative thing for consumers in the end. So pros and cons.
Yeah, look, I think it's a balance, right? It's, and I feel like they've gone too far, like in recent years, and exerted their market dominance.
Well, I guess that's the funny thing, right? It's like
they always come back.
Yeah.
Let me finish. Like they constantly say that they're a small part of the market, like they're less than 50% or whatever. But if you actually look at profitability, and the profitability is really what matters the most.
Kinda, yeah.
They're still number one.
Well, I don't know if profitability matters.
Well, money
it is, but it's not necessarily, because
dude,
in the end, it's consumer impact that I think matters. So if they're running a platform that only has 20% of the consumer base, even if they have by far the highest profits because they sell their devices at a premium, and those 20% of people are happy to pay that price, I don't know if that necessarily matters how much profitability that they have. You know what I mean? I think it's the impact to the consumer that should matter in the end.
No, but that gives you an indication of consumer engagement, because there are a lot of people who have Android phones that have them for their grandma and they barely pick them up.
Yeah, there's an element of it.
That's a device that's out there, and that's the one of the, let's say, on the pie of 100 devices, that's 1% to Android. That one phone, but it's barely used.
Profitability is a bit
does
different
give
as
you
well,
a bit of an
because
indication as to
iPhones are way more profitable for Apple than any of the Android devices are for the Android manufacturers. They get way less per device compared to what Apple get on their devices. So it's really hard. I think engagement, as you said, would probably make the most sense if you could compare it properly somehow. But in the end, I think, from a consumer's perspective is ultimately what it should matter. What is the best for consumers? Having a completely more open platform, or having Apple dictate their terms to their customers? And I guess now we're in a situation where, the government intervenes and gives orders as to what a company is allowed to do, purely because there's just so many people that have their devices. It's a commodity almost. It's
and just like the final thing on it, because we should move on. We haven't covered it in the past before, but it's just kind of like concept of, it's like a benevolent dictator where everyone's pretty happy in the walled garden, right? And they're being fair, and they charge a premium, but they're not being ridiculous. I think in this case, to me, it's just a black and white BS thing where they don't ask Netflix to package up their movies for individual sale, and they don't ask Netflix to package up their TV shows for individual sale, but they're asking Microsoft and whoever else wants to do cloud gaming to package up each game as its separate app, right? Even though
I agree.
To me, it's just a media product.
Absolutely,
it's the perfect analogy, and it's just like, hang on, your rules don't make any sense. Like, the only reason why you're doing this is because you don't want to lose out on in-app purchases, all this money, but just be honest about it.
But I mean,
you know what I mean? You are exerting your market dominance to prevent people from, experiencing things. And for me personally, I definitely won't get an iPhone next go around. And I'll hold on to this as long as it lasts, but I'll be switching to Android after this phone. Yeah. Well, let's move on to